Welcome to the Sportlight podcast for parents, coaches, and athletes. The Sportlight refers to the time in an athlete's life when they have increased ability to affect the culture around them and the increased opportunity to learn life's lessons through sports. This podcast aims to help parents and coaches capitalize on their athletes' precious time in the Sportlight. The Sportlight podcast is brought to you by Especially for Athletes program.
Hey, Dustin, how's it going, man?
Hey, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm excited to share this video with you today. It's from McKenna Miller, Osu now. She married another All-American volleyball player from BYU. So their kids, I want to buy stock in their children's volleyball stock. But
yeah.
But some may not know, McKenna Miller at the time when she was playing for BYU was a four-time all-conference, all-American volleyball player at BYU. Just incredible lady and accomplished so much at one of the best volleyball programs in the country. And it was a pleasure to sit down with her and just have a conversation about especially for athletes stuff and the principles that we talk about. I learned a ton from sitting down with her. But, you know, one of the things, Dustin, that we go around and we preach from, well, really anyone who will listen to us, you know, is just the power of the Sportlight to do good. When you have that Sportlight with you as an athlete and you're on a high school team or you're achieving greatness in sports at any degree, that Sportlight that comes to you, that ability to do good for other people increases. And as you know, I mean, you started this whole thing, but we've seen that great good can be done by an athlete who decides, I'm going to use this position to try to help other people. And I was talking about that with McKenna. And during this interview, she began to reflect back on her high school times. And I know you and I have done that a lot, you know, almost wishing we could go back and talk to ourselves and say, hey, man, let me teach you some things. And that is a big reason why we started this movement, right? But as she started to reflect, she taught a few things that I think would be super valuable for any athlete who wants to use their Sportlight to help those around them, that position to help others. So let's just take a listen. I want you to hear what she said, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
Best way to do that is just push yourself out of your comfort zone. Because again, in all things in life, if you want to get better, you're going to have to be uncomfortable. In sports, school, whatever, to push yourself to be better, it's going to be uncomfortable and you might not like it at first. And it's going to feel weird. No one likes to not be comfortable. But I think making that effort to talk to people can be scary. Like I said, if you talk to a stranger, you see someone struggling, you're like, they don't know who I am. And it's super easy to kind of negative self-talk and convince yourself reasons why not to do something. But I think especially with that message that you guys are sharing, and it's awesome. And I love that that's going around, but is that sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. For good things are never easy. And I wish, kind of looking at my high school self, I kind of just stuck to my bubble of friends and because I was comfortable there. And I wish there was times when I would have made more of an effort just to befriend more people, not even say hi, but like sometimes I find something out about someone, I'm like, that's so cool. How did I not know that they did this? And it was like, I should have put more time investing and making relationships and just pushing my comfort zone to open my friend bubble, basically. And there's so many cool people in a high school. It's just this kind of melting pot of all sorts of people. And so there's so much potential for friendships and relationships that you'll never know unless you push yourself out of your comfort zone for a little bit. From my experience, I feel like no one is particularly trying to be exclusive and say like the whole, you can't sit with us or whatever. Like that might happen. I've never seen that because most people are good-hearted and they don't intentionally mean to exclude others. I think just putting in that time and genuine like thought and emotion and care for people. Don't just ask someone to sit with you to check a box so you can say you did it. Like put in that effort to get to know someone and reach out, because you could change their whole high school experience. And I feel like something that kind of like motivates me is cheesy, but the quote, like, leave people better than you found them.
All right, man. What'd you think? I'd love to hear just some of the thoughts you had as you listen to that.
Yeah, she said she touches on a lot of great stuff there, and I'm glad that you know her and that you were able to interview her. I'm excited to hear more of what she has to say. I know that interview went for about an hour or so, and that you probably have some other great cut-ups of that. So I'm excited to hear from her. She's wise beyond her years, but she said several things that really stood out to me. One there towards the end, she made that comment that I know we've talked about when we've been in front of teams or at schools, and that's that, you know, people aren't as exclusive as we sometimes. I don't think people are sitting at lunch tables at every cafeteria in America pushing kids, you know, tray off the table when they try to sit down by them and saying, you can't sit here. And I don't want, you know, taking their lunch money in the lunch line, like, you know, like you see in the movies and things.
Yeah, not the Disney Channel, right? Athletes are not Disney Channel athletes.
No, exactly.
Yeah. The thousands of kids we've met, they aren't like that. They most of them aren't mean. Very small percentage.
The Hollywood stereotype of athletes is that, right? That they're putting kids in lockers, they're taking their lunch money, you can't come sit by me. And now I know in saying that, there's probably somebody listening that says, no, I know people who are exactly like that, or I remember kids who are exactly like that. So I'm not saying that there aren't those, you know, those kids, unfortunately, that are that way, but most of them aren't. Most of them aren't exclusive in the fact that they're in your face about it. I think it's more of we in general, not just kids. This is just as much an adult thing. You move into a new neighborhood as an adult and you go to a neighborhood activity or you know, some sort of get together in the community, and you just don't know people. It's easy to think that people don't want to talk to me, that they're being mean or they're being rude to me. And they're not intentionally doing that. They're comfortable in another setting, and it comes across as being not interested in us. And so when she commented on that, the word that came to mind was, you know, and I know I've heard you say this before, and that idea of being intentional in our desire to want to include others and be aware of other people. And the motto of eyes up, do the work really encompasses that. That's sort of really the foundation of that phrase, right? Is that how can we expect to be aware of what's happening around us if our eyes aren't up, if we're not actively, intentionally looking when we're in those situations to think, all right, how can I make this experience better for everybody? And that's hard. That's a big ask. We get it. We understand. We're asking kids to do this. We're also asking adults in our own, you know, worlds to do this. But the reason we're asking kids to do it, and particularly the athletes that we're talking to, is that we believe they've been trained to do hard things. That when and we'll talk about this a little bit later about her comments on being comfortable, but what group of kids do we have in our community who have been put in situations where they've had to do uncomfortable things and get through it and come back the next day and do it again better than kids who have been failing and winning their whole life through sport? That's why I think they're perfectly trained to handle some of these challenges that she talked about.
Yeah, and one thing we've talked about a lot is that Sportlight, it kind of magnifies what you are. It also magnifies people's impression of what you are. So that word intentional, you know, something that she struck on it. She said, I was stuck in my bubble of friends because I was comfortable there. It wasn't exclusiveness, it was comfort. And I think that sometimes at schools and in communities and that people look at other people, and that Sportlight kind of magnifies that perception that, oh, they don't want to hang out with me, you know? And unless you intentionally try to overcome that and try to break through that, then I think that impression, so you're just comfortable with your friends, but the perception of other people is they think they're better than me, or they don't want me to be part of it. I've been thinking a lot about that it's one thing to have the desire in your heart to want to reach out to other people and help them, but it's another thing to break down those barriers, those perceptions. And, you've been doing this a long time with, especially for athletes, and working with youth and trying to help them to do this. And, we've learned some things, but I'm just wondering, what are some of those most important things you've learned about how to break down that perception and be more approachable, so that people look at, this athlete at their school and think, that person, I can approach that person. Like, they will help me. I know that. And I'm just wondering what thoughts you have on that. How can you be more approachable as an athlete?
Well, some of them I think are basic, just human behavioral practices that we don't seem to practice as well nowadays. And partly is due to the way we communicate now with devices and different things, but something just as simple as looking at people, looking them in the eyes when they're talking to you, asking somebody their name and calling them by their name. When if you're the volleyball player, like in McKenna's case, and she's in junior high or high school or college, and somebody walks into her class and is sitting next to her, or walks by her and asks her a question or has some sort of conversation where she's present. When the person looks at you and asks you, what's your name? I haven't met you before. Nice to meet you. And just shows some interest in the person, right? Versus, hey, I'm not your friend. I don't know you. I'm not going to be cruel to you. I'm not going to be mean to you. I just don't have any interest in really going beyond just, hey, we go to the same school together. And that's the do the work part of what we're asking, that it's going to take a little bit of work to move past the idea that don't just be a bystander and think that it's okay because, hey, I'm not the problem. We want you to be part of the solution. So simple things like just acknowledging, getting to know people's names, calling them by their names when you see them, talking less and listening a little bit more when people are talking, and asking follow-up questions, being genuinely, interested in people in their life and wanting to learn about them. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, to everybody, I am the lesser in something, and to that I learn of him. Right? Just that simple advice, that everybody has something of value and something that they're more experienced in than I am. And rather than trying to always be the smartest guy in the room, the ability to realize, what is it about that person? What experience or what lesson have they learned, or story do they have, or something that I can learn from, and be genuinely interested in trying to find out what that is. In doing so, the person, is going to want to be around you and talk with you and feel more comfortable around you because you're interested in them. And that's where, if we could get our athletes to think that way, and then do the work necessary to make it a habit, they could do a lot of good.
Yeah. That, I love that thought of just thinking about their interests. Athletes get enough attention, but they don't need to go into a room and try to get more. Right? Like most athletes aren't short on attention. Like, they have thousands of kids who watch them do things, adults, they have newspapers writing about what they do. Most athletes aren't short of attention. So it's just this idea of, you go into a room, and I love something that she said. She just said, I know it's simple, I know it's cliche and a little bit cheesy, but just leave people a little better than you found them. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that in a math class, I do think sometimes there are some people who in their heart, they think they're really nice, and they are really nice, like their intentions and everything else. But it's one thing to say, if anyone approaches me, I will be their friend.
Yeah.
But we're asking athletes to not just be friendly when you're approached, but we're asking them to approach other people. We're asking them to keep their eyes up and to look for people who maybe are down on a particular day or on a number of days in a row, to look around on their team and just see, man, when we get together as a team, is there anyone not here? I think of I spoke at an event at a school, And this mom came up to me afterwards, and we had talked about how awesome it is to be part of a team. And I'll never forget this. The mom came up to me and she said, you guys are missing something out of your presentation that you just gave. And I said, oh, tell me, what's that? I'd love to know. And she said, not every kid who's on a team is part of the team. My daughter's not part of the team. She's on it. She has a jersey, but she's not part of the team. They don't include her. And so sometimes even on our own, I don't think if we would have surveyed that team, that they would be sitting there like, who? Yeah, Elizabeth? Oh yeah, we hate her. We leave her out on purpose, you know. But it's more of, it's being intentional. It's really looking. It's who seems like, who's next to me in my classes, who's on my team that's not with us when we get together, who might be able to be helped. And then not just to be approachable, but to approach, to go to people and to say, hey, what's up? And I love what you said, Dustin, just that show interest in their interests.
Yeah.
Learn about stuff that they are interested in, and let them talk about them and get to know them without just asking a question and then going, oh yeah, this one time, you know, but ask them more questions, help them to share their life with you, and then show that you really appreciate and like what they shared. That helps people feel valued.
And it might be uncomfortable, and it will be, it's going to be uncomfortable. And, you know, wouldn't you agree that, you know, more and more, I think every year, I don't know, maybe it's just getting old, you see it more. I feel like our whole focus is how to be more comfortable, how to make our kids' lives more, as parents, more comfortable. Everything, the decisions we make in life are usually, how can I have it easier? Whether it's the house that I'm building or the car that I'm buying or the TV that I'm buying or whatever, you know, my activities for the day, how can I do this in a way that makes me the most comfortable, right? The least resistance, the better. And we have to be careful with that. And I would encourage, you know, our athletes to be careful with that the most comfortable, easy route, it seems like the right one to be on, but it's like being out on the lake with no wind to the sail. You're really not going to move. You're not going anywhere. You need that resistance. We need that pushing back against us to get us to, you know, to work a little bit. And that's where the growth is. And so when she talks about being comfortable, and it becomes very easy if you're an athlete or forget athletes, if you're just a human being in general who finds it easy to be in a crowd of people, finds it easy to be at a party or to be in a social gathering or wherever it is, to public speak, to whatever, it's easy for you. It's comfortable for you. It's very hard for you to feel empathetic towards somebody who maybe is really struggling in that setting. And that's what we're trying to make them aware of, is that, hey, for a lot of people, those are very difficult settings to be in. And if you go into that setting not understanding or trying to realize that there are people here that this is not easy for them, and I'm going to step out of my comfort zone a little bit and try to find those people and talk to them and practice listening and practice asking them questions and getting to know them a little bit. But again, that's where I feel like these athletes that have gone through failures because of their sports, they've struck out, they've missed shots, they've, you know, made teams and maybe been cut from teams, that they know how to do hard things. And we as parents, and that's, you know, topics for other podcasts and things we'll probably touch on regularly, need to be careful that we're not making it too easy and too comfortable for our kids, that they don't want anything to do with hard things, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe just to conclude, a couple of things that she has said that I love, that, you know, we have noticed as we go around, there's a lot of power in one individual who's willing to keep their eyes up and do the work. But that power exponentially grows when a team decides that, when a group says, hey, we're going to make a difference in our school. You know, even if it's one team within a school, they can make this huge difference. And I love what she said. I wish I would have opened up my friend bubble. So there's almost these two things she talked about that I thought were really profound. One was open up my friend bubble and be more approachable. The other one was I stuck to my bubble because I was comfortable in there. So it's like, yeah, I'm comfortable in here. Come on in. It's great. You know, that's one approach. Another approach is what you were just talking about, having the courage to go outside of that bubble and approach people, not just be approachable. And
be intentional with it. That, you know, true compassion isn't just feeling sorry for somebody or pain for somebody or wanting somebody to have a better circumstance. It's taking action to make that happen, right? We call that doing the work. That's what real compassion that leads to positive change looks like. It's not just feeling bad. It's doing something to make it better. And knowing that these issues are out there, our ask of parents and of kids and of athletes is be intentional in seeking and looking with your eyes up and then doing, knowing that it's going to be hard sometimes, but understanding that you've been groomed to do hard things. You just have to accept the challenge and do it.
Yeah.
Try it.
And it takes courage. I love one of the things I know one year as we went around and spoke that really has stuck in my heart is it's impossible to have courage if you're not afraid, because courage is doing something in spite of fear. So people who've never been afraid of anything, well, they're not courageous, because courage is doing something that you are afraid of. And it's been inspiring. I know you've seen this. I mean, we'll go speak places and we'll get like 100 emails. And then those emails we get follow-up emails from the kids that we speak to. And when kids have the courage, when teams have a courage, and in some cases where it's most profound, when whole athletic programs have the courage to say, we are going to open that friend bubble. We're going to approach people. We're going to invite them in. We're going to make a difference in our culture. Man, those kids perform miracles. Like, they literally change lives. They literally save lives if they could get beyond that fear and that comfort of their own little bubble. When they burst that and let people in and go out, holy cow, they do incredible things.
And that's the whole point of Eyes Up, do the work. That's it summed up. Be more compassionate, be more courageous, and get your eyes up, because it's everywhere. Opportunities are everywhere. And as parents, teach our kids that being uncomfortable is okay. And in fact, even kind of invite a little bit of wind, because without it, there's no growth.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks, man. Always love talking with you.
Likewise, brother.
This has been the Sportlight podcast from Especially for Athletes, sponsored by Coca-Cola. You can learn more about Especially for Athletes by visiting the website at especiallyforathletes.org. You can also learn more about the book, The Sportlight, by Shad Martin and Dustin Smith at especiallyforathletes.org/book.